Gobierno de México. Gobierno de México. Gobierno de México.
Muy buenos días a todas, a todos. Estoy muy orgulloso y muy honrado de estar aquí al lado de un gran pianista de Inglaterra. Él es McCawley, quien ha grabado muchísimos discos de los grandes compositores Brahms, Schumann, Chopin, Schubert, Haydn, Mozart y pues también de compositores un poco menos conocidos. Ya hablaremos al respecto. Ha hecho conciertos en todo el mundo, ha interpretado con las mejores orquestas, los mejores directores y va a estar en el Festival en Blanco y Negro el día de mañana. Entonces, pues será una conversación inolvidable y quiero darle la bienvenida al maestro McCawley. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Akila. It's lovely to be here.
It's wonderful. So, welcome to the festival and welcome to Mexico. You're doing a small tour in Mexico. Tell us a little bit about what's the importance of coming to our country and being able to share what you do always in the big halls in the UK, in the US, and elsewhere, but coming to Mexico.
Exactly. Well, I'm really excited to be here. This is my very first time in Mexico City. I've only changed planes here before, so I've never actually performed in this city. So really looking forward to, the auditorium here is fantastic. It looks really wonderful. And I'm also going to be performing later on after this concert tomorrow in Monterrey and then also Torreón, performing in different plays.
Esta ocasión pues ya viene para hacer una pequeña gira, va a estar en Monterrey también y en Torreón y pues siempre es una bella manera de compartir la música con las diferentes reacciones, las diferentes audiencias. Tell me a little bit about your beginnings. Let's talk about that. I listened that you sang in a choir a little bit, maybe.
Yes, I think we also, music is, it's, for me, I'm always drawn to melody in music, and I think that's the singing qualities in the piano. It's all the composers that sing, I'm very much inspired by, so particularly Schubert and Chopin.
To you say that your most beautiful moment in life is to play some 18th century melodies.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm so happy. Especially the music of Mozart and Haydn less so. Haydn is melodic. We're not on the same level as Mozart, which is very operatic music, of course. But beginnings, yes, I did sing in a choir, but I was very fortunate to go to a specialist music school, so something probably quite similar to the school which is here in Mexico City that's linked to Senart. There aren't very many of those in the UK, but there was one in Manchester, which is where I'm from originally. I'm from not far from that city in a province called Cheshire, the county of Cheshire. And I studied there, but I don't come from a musical background. So my parents...
Your parents were not...
My parents didn't play anything, but we had a piano in the house. My parents bought a small piano for us I've got three sisters, and they bought a piano for us all to play on, and then we took lessons with the local teacher. I came from quite a small town in the countryside, so not a lot of music activities other than the church activities. So this is how, going to choir, and then also I played the organ in my local church. All these elements, I think, really helped me learn how to perform in front of an audience. So they were my early beginnings.
Okay, let me translate.
Okay.
Bueno, le pregunto de sus inicios, si cantó en algún coro. En Inglaterra hay toda una tradición coral. It's so important, the English tradition of singing in choirs.
Yes, that's right.
Y comenta que justamente es tan importante el canto en su vida, el canto pues después a través del piano, compositores como Mozart con este idioma tan operático que tiene, también Haydn de otra forma, y pues después, regresa a contar un poco sobre sus inicios en una ciudad que está muy cerca de Manchester, una pequeña ciudad. Sus padres no son músicos, pero sin embargo tuvo un piano y también en la iglesia tocó el órgano y pues ahí es donde empezó a interpretar frente a las audiencias y como empieza este gusto por la música. So, yeah, I read that your teacher there was very important also because she...
Yes, well, that's right. Well, not coming from a musical family, my parents really didn't know how I could progress as a musician, so they were reliant on the advice of the local teachers. And this led to me to study in Manchester with a great teacher, Heather Slade-Lipkin. I worked with her for over 7 years, and she really helped to build my foundation, not only technical foundation, but musical foundation. So I owe so much to her. And she was very encouraging. She also was encouraging enough to let me go in the end, because I think some teachers find it very hard to say, goodbye.
Yeah, be generous enough.
Be generous to say, look for more opportunities. And those opportunities came later. I was able to audition at the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia, and that was my next
your next step.
Very inspiring place to go to, and what a wonderful place that
Already
was.
before leaving, you did some competitions, right? And,
yes.
And you started playing a lot because you won
yes.
the young.
Yes, there was a competition in Manchester. Well, it was in Manchester, but it's a national competition, the BBC Young Musician of the Year, which is a huge competition for young musicians, and it gives them a great platform and opportunity. It's televised, and there are lots of concert possibilities. So this was always something I wanted to work towards. When I realised, though, when I realised that I had a gift, I had some talent, and was encouraged by my teacher to enter competitions. I think without that help, I probably wouldn't have done it. I'm not necessarily, I don't consider myself overly confident. And I think entering those competitions helped to build my confidence as a performer, because we need so much self-confidence when we play. We constantly doubt ourselves as musicians. So the more, I tell this to my students, the more opportunities you can get to participate in concerts.
Being televised as
yes,
I mean,
it was incredibly nerve-wracking at the time. I was 16, and I'd never had that sort of exposure before. I had entered local festivals, but this was the very first time that it was on a national level. So yeah, exciting, but also very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I will translate.
Of course.
Entonces, bueno, le pregunto un poco sobre estos primeros concursos. Nos contó sobre su maestra Heather Slade-Lipkin, right? Quien fue un apoyo muy, muy importante porque le dio esta seguridad, esta sensación de que pues su talento tenía que salir y a la base nadie nace siendo extremadamente seguro, y entonces le ayudó mucho. Hizo algunas competencias como el concurso de la BBC para los talentos jóvenes, y el que ganó y que lo llevó a participar en conciertos a nivel nacional por primera vez. Entonces le preguntaba qué tal esa exposición, y dice que efectivamente pues no, él había hecho algunos concursos a nivel local, nunca algo así tan grande, y pues él le dice a sus alumnos que la única manera de superar este nerviosismo pues es estar constantemente en la exposición al público, haciendo conciertos, etcétera. Okay.
You translate very well, I think.
Well,
I think you remembered everything. I'm very impressed.
So, first time in America, you already thought about that one time. I read that you were thinking about studying in America.
Yes.
Is there... That's
the sort of promised land, the promised land of opportunity. It was Heather Slade-Lipkin, my teacher, that had sent a number of her students over to New York, so including Stephen Huff, that you might have been familiar with, very famous concert pianist, Robert Markham as well, who did very well. So there are two pianists that were older than me that had already gone to America. So by the age of, I think I was about 12, 13, yes, I had it in my mind. Oh, maybe this is the place to study. Now, of course, I could have gone to London, and I would have gone to London, I think, if I hadn't have got into Philadelphia. But the opportunity came by because my school orchestra went on tour to the States on the East Coast.
Okay.
That was probably one of my first opportunities of playing with an orchestra, but certainly on tour, just getting the feel of playing a concerto several times. And this was with the school.
You were playing as a soloist?
Yes, I played Beethoven, First Piano Concerto.
Okay.
And during the school tour, we visited several cities, and it included Philadelphia.
Okay.
And we visited the Curtis Institute. And I just fell in love with the place. Not only was it, I mean, it was such a beautiful building as well, but the teaching, the faculty was so impressive that I felt this was the place, if I could get in. Unfortunately, I was able to get in. It's one of the very few completely full scholarship places. I think it probably is the only one in the United States, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to be able to have a full funding to have my bachelor, I did a bachelor degree education there, and so very thrilled to have that. And I worked with a wonderful teacher, Eleanor Sokoloff. She was on the faculty for many, many years, and in fact, I think she died sadly a few years ago. And I think she holds the record for. She was on the faculty for almost 80 years.
I read she lived like 100 and.
Yeah, she died at 106, 107. I had such a close relationship with her, and again, she was very inspiring musically. Introduced me to the music of Schumann, music that I now was one of my favorite composers. But at the time when I was 18, I hadn't really played any major work of Schumann. She helped me understand his music and helped me really fall in love with it. Yeah.
So, entonces habla ahora de este siguiente paso en sus estudios. Después de estar en Manchester, va a los Estados Unidos, a Filadelfia, al Curtis Institute, y le preguntaba, yo leí que desde tiempo atrás él ya estaba pensando en ir a Estados Unidos, y nos dice, pues sí, la tierra prometida, y obviamente hubiera podido estudiar en Londres, pero hicieron un tour con la orquesta de su escuela, en donde él tocaba como solista el concierto para piano número 1 de Beethoven, y ahí se enamoró. Bueno, fue a muchas ciudades, pero una de ellas fue Filadelfia, y conoció el Curtis Institute, y pues se enamora no solamente del edificio, que es muy bello, sino también de los maestros, la enseñanza que había ahí. Entonces, pues piensa que si logra entrar, y que afortunadamente lo logró, pues sería una gran opción. Y es una de las pocas, o si no es la única escuela en conservatorio en Estados Unidos que da una beca completa para quien logra entrar. Entonces es un lugar importante y muy, muy especial. Y pues nos habló de su maestra Eleanor Sokoloff, con quien mantuvo una gran relación durante muchos años. Ella falleció a los 106, 107 años. Tiene un récord de casi 80 años enseñando en el Curtis Institute, con quien mantuvo una relación muy cercana, y también le enseñó, entre otras cosas, la música de Schumann, y él no había tocado obras tan grandes del compositor, y gracias a ella es que se acerca a esto. Tell me a little bit about the cultural shock, or about not only the musical, but how was leaving the UK to another country, and do you remember a little bit of your feelings and your experiences?
I absolutely loved it. It was, I didn't really feel, it was a completely different place, but Philadelphia is a very European city. I don't know whether you've ever been there, but it has a European feel. It has a great history. It's one of the, it was the first capital of the United States. Has beautiful square in the middle where the Curtis Institute is, that almost has a Parisian feel to it. So it didn't necessarily feel like I was going to a completely different world. And I was working with, it was a completely international school. There were quite a lot of Europeans studying as well as Americans. But yes, moving away from home, I think because I'd been at a specialist music school, it was a boarding school, but unfortunately I stayed at home. I lived quite close to the school. So I never had a feeling of living in a city before. So this was the first time I was in a city on my own. And of course, initially I felt homesick. I missed my family. I think for about the first 2 or 3 months, it wasn't easy. But then I settled in, and I really loved every minute of it. What was wonderful was down the road, just a few blocks away, was the Philadelphia Orchestra Academy House. And the students were allowed they gave free concerts to go and hear the orchestra. So how wonderful was that? Just to be able to walk everywhere in the city as well. It's one of those very walkable cities, which is unusual for the States, whereas you have to get in a cab or, everything is very spread out. London is the same. It's walkable, but it's a huge city. Philadelphia is much more intimate. So I think if I'd gone to New York, I probably would have had more of an intense culture shock. But Philadelphia felt very homey. And I settled in pretty quickly. Yeah.
Le pregunto sobre si este primer encuentro con Estados Unidos, el cambio de país y la nueva vida le significó algún shock, no solamente en el aspecto musical, sino también emocional. Y pues dice que en principio es una ciudad muy europea, que se puede caminar, que no es demasiado grande, que tiene algo incluso de parisino, Filadelfia, y que pues sí, los primeros tal vez 2 o 3 meses pues extrañaba a la familia, etcétera. Siempre había vivido con ellos, puesto que en la escuela en la que iba, aunque es una escuela en la que muchos de los alumnos viven ahí, se llama boarding school, pero él vivía tan cerca que no necesitaba quedarse. Entonces era la primera vez que estaba lejos de su familia, que sí fue un poco difícil al principio, pero que es una ciudad que se sentía muy familiar, muy similar, y que además pues muchos de los estudiantes venían de otras partes, y una de las grandes cosas era que estaban permitidos de entrar a los conciertos de la orquesta de Filadelfia. Entonces, pues, que eso era fabuloso. Wonderful. And so, the big competitions. Right. Yeah. Vienna.
Yes.
And
yes.
Leeds.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about those.
Yes, they were... at the time, I was looking at those as just opportunities for more exposure, as we talked about earlier. I wasn't necessarily thinking about winning and a career. It was more about being able to have those opportunities to perform. Thanks to the Young Musician of the Year, that gave me the confidence to believe in myself, and have that self-assurance to enter the competition itself, these 2 competitions. So I decided, I was in my 2nd year at Curtis, so I was still quite young, I was 19, that I'd try for Vienna, the Beethoven competition. Back in at my home, my parents bought a Bösendorfer piano for me when I was about 15, 16, so that I could practice on a better piano at home. And we developed a relationship with Bösendorfer in London, who were very kind enough to support me for a number of years. So as a result of that, I heard about the Vienna competition. Bösendorfer were one of the sponsors of this competition. So I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful competition to enter.
The prize. Wow.
The prize. The most important thing was a Bösendorfer Grand. And also several opportunities.
Do you still practice on that?
I do. I still have it at home. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's now 30 years old, and it's in my studio at home. Yeah. Yeah. So that was the big prize, as well as concert opportunities. And of course, playing music by Beethoven. The whole competition was all Beethoven. We had to perform early sonata, the middle period, the late period, and variations, and also some short pieces. So again, it was a great way of building up more repertoire while I was a student.
How do you feel about the philosophical, so deep and complex understanding of Beethoven so young?
I know.
It's not that easy.
I think, yes, I was, of course, I had very little experience of life at that time, but we have imagination. We try and really get inside the composer's mind. So I guess that's what I was trying my best to do. And of course, as the years have gone by and I've become older and more mature, my playing may have changed. It may not have changed in places, or I have different concepts, different ideas about it.
Have you listened to recordings of those times?
No, I haven't. They're on cassette tape and they're in a box somewhere. I haven't listened, but I probably should now. I'm not really a person that really enjoys going back. I try and go forward and learn from an experience and then move on. But probably now, I've just turned 50 this year, which is a big year for me. I may now perhaps be a little bit nostalgic and go back and listen back and remember, though. It was a very very enjoyable and a very exciting period in my life to have won that competition quite early in my life. I hadn't expected it at all. I played really well. I was very confident, and I was very happy to get through to the final. But to win that competition, then it gave me that sort of catalyst to want to do more. And then the Leeds was the major competition, I'd say, the Leeds International.
Entonces, le pregunto ya sobre estos años en Curtis y que entra a los grandes concursos. Entró a competir en el concurso Beethoven en Viena, del cual se había enterado porque en casa sus padres le habían comprado un Wessendorfer y tenían una cierta relación ya con la marca, y este concurso era patrocinado por Wessendorfer. Entonces así se entera, decide hacerlo, solamente con la visión y la búsqueda de tener más exposición, más conciertos, tocar en público, no pensando propiamente en ganarlo. Sin embargo, pues estaba preparado y tocó con mucha seguridad, etcétera. Entonces gana el primer lugar, llega a la final, que no lo esperaba para nada, y después gana. El premio de este concurso es un Wessendorfer de cola, de concierto, en el cual aún estudia. Tiene 30 años ya este piano y es en donde sigue estudiando en casa. Entonces, bueno, la experiencia fabulosa, inesperada, de llegar a la final y ganar. Y también nos iba a hablar ahora del concurso de Leeds, otro gran concurso. The Leeds competition.
Yes, the Leeds is the biggie. This is the big one in the UK, and it's recognised all over the world. And it gave me a lot of opportunities, a lot of concerts, and I didn't win the competition, but I came second. I got through to the final, and at the time, how exciting that was just to get through to the final. I didn't expect to do any more than that. So I was delighted to get that award. It was very close in the competition, closely fought between all 6 finalists. And Dame Fanny Waterman is the president of that competition, and what an inspiration she is for promoting music, piano music, throughout the world, and especially in the UK. So this was the launching pad for me, really. The Leeds was the one that gave me the concerts and the opportunity, the agent, and it was a starting point.
I can imagine.
Yeah, that's the beginning, really. So you work all the way through your childhood. You think, no, this is it. No, this is just the beginning. You've got a long, long way to go.
Of course.
And I was fully aware of the fact this could be, it may be a difficult career. It could be an easy career. Who knows? But it could be a challenging career.
Oh, it's a very challenging career.
Very challenging.
Yeah. What did you play? Do you remember?
I do remember. Very challenging repertoire, because we had 1, 2, 3, wait a minute, first round, second round, semi-final, 4 rounds. A lot of music to prepare.
And you need to be ready, because
yes, it was basically all the repertoire that I'd performed for several years as a student in Manchester, and then for the first 2 years of Curtis Institute. The first round, some Scarlatti, Schumann, Beethoven Opus 111. That was a bit of a risk to do in the first round, but fortunately got me through. And then second round I did Brahms Handel variations with some Bach to begin with, I think. Something in the middle. Some Liszt. Venezia, Napoli, and then, it's bringing back memories now. The semi-final, was it Haydn and Beethoven, from the Beethoven competition, the 32 variations I played. And then Schumann, Waltzen, and then something a little bit unusual that I've been introduced to in Philadelphia, the Samuel Barber piano sonata, which was a real sort of tour de force, a real war horse of the 20th century. You know the piece, it's a big, big fugue, isn't it? And I'd learnt that in Philadelphia with Eleanor Sokolov, who knew Samuel Barber. She was there. They were colleagues at the same time in the late 1930s, 40s.
We'll talk about your
We can talk
CD
about that
later.
in a minute. Yeah.
And
then in the concerto final, I did Beethoven 1. A concerto, I decided rather than... I had learnt some of the Rachmaninoff concertos, and that possibly would have been the most obvious choice when entering a big competition such as the Leeds. But because I'd done the Beethoven in May and on the tour, it was a piece I felt most comfortable with, and I thought this was probably the less risky. And in the end, it ended up being quite a good choice. Beethoven 1 has a huge cadenza of Beethoven, and it's a very substantial work. You can say a lot in this piece, and I felt it suited me at the time as well. I was, just turned 20, so again, I was really, really young and fresh. Yeah.
Bueno, le pregunté sobre esta competencia de Leeds, que nos dice que es la grande, ¿no? Realmente esta competencia sí, una vez que la ganas, te lleva a tener posibilidades de conciertos. Así tuvo su primer agente, y en esta competencia le pregunté también sobre las diferentes piezas que interpretó. Son 4 diferentes rondas para ganar. En la primera tocó la sonata Opus 111 de Beethoven, la última. No sé si voy a recordar todo el repertorio, pero bueno, en cada ronda fue tocando cosas diversas y bastante difíciles de lo que había estudiado durante todos sus años, desde Manchester hasta los 2 años que llevaba en Curtis. Y en la final la opción más obvia es tocar algún concierto de Rachmaninoff, pero decidió irse por el concierto de Beethoven 1, que es el que había tocado ya varias veces en el tour y lo tenía más seguro. Y es una pieza que te permite expresar bastante, tiene una cadencia muy sustanciosa en la que puedes realmente demostrar en lo que tienes que dar. Entonces siento que fue una buena opción. En este concurso llegó a la final, lo cual ya era para él fabuloso, y al final obtuvo el segundo lugar, lo cual pues se lo llevó a empezar una carrera que podría uno pensar que ahí ya se logró, pero en realidad dice, no, esto es apenas el principio de un camino muy, muy, muy largo, que pues de una carrera que ciertamente es bastante difícil. Good. Big stuff afterwards. Tell me about the proms. The proms are a big thing in the world, but of course,
have you ever been?
I watched them.
Oh, you've seen them, yes.
Yeah, but I have never been, but it looks so big. And
it is a mammoth. It's absolutely huge. I've never played anywhere so big. It seats 6,000 people, so it's sort of 10 times
you can see
bigger than this auditorium. Yeah, a magnificent place. I mean, they have boxing in the Albert Hall. It's not only music, they have all sorts of events. Tennis, they hold tennis matches.
During the proms?
No, not during the proms. I'm just saying
during the year.
Generally during the year, it's used for all sorts of events. And it's right opposite where I teach. I teach at the Royal College of Music in South Kensington, and I have this amazing view of the Albert Hall from my teaching room. Yeah, but going back to the proms, I made my debut there back in 1995. And yes, it was daunting, because I was worried whether would I be able to communicate to the audience that are so far away. There's an amphitheater, there's a big so far away from the stage. How will I possibly
the acoustics
project?
Are they good enough?
They are tricky. And I think as a performer, you have to believe that it's working. If you start doubting, then it all goes wrong. So you have to have a self-belief it's working. It's very hard to hear the orchestra as well, because the space is so large, and it's all in a round, which is it feels unusual, because most halls are sort of boxed in, and it's very round. But with a full house, strangely enough, it feels intimate. So it's large, but then
Maybe because it's round.
It's round. The audience is drawn in it. What's very special about the proms is they have what they're called promers. They're an audience that they're allowed to come in and stand. They have standing room right in the center of the auditorium. So many hundreds of people come in and they queue. It's a very popular event, so people queue on the day and they get tickets. They can stand for the whole concert, which is tiring for them, but they're very, very enthusiastic to listen to all sorts of music. So yeah, I played there several times over the years, and yeah, when I play there, it is a definite highlight to have that
And the first time it was with a Mozart concerto, right?
Yes, the very first, my debut there, I played a smaller Mozart concerto, K449. So instead of, I went in at the deep end with a very exposed piece. But it was a piece that I knew well. I'd gone on tour in Japan with it. So again, I had the opportunity to decide that concerto. They wanted a Mozart concerto. So that's the one that I picked. And it was on a Bösendorfer as well. That was the first time. But then since then I played on the Steinways there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bueno, le pregunté ya después de haber ganado el concurso en Leeds, grandes cosas sucedieron. Participó en los Proms, que es un evento gigantesco en Inglaterra, en el Albert Hall, que es para 6,000 personas, 10 veces esta sala, y donde tuvo la oportunidad de hacer su debut en 1994, en 95,
yes.
En el 95 escogió tocar un concierto de Mozart y bueno, nos habló mucho sobre qué se siente tocar en un lugar tan grande, 6,000 personas, con una acústica que puede ser tramposa, engañosa, en el sentido de que uno se empieza a preocupar de que no se escuche y es lo peor que puedes hacer. Dice, la única manera de lograr hacerlo bien es confiar en que te van a escuchar y hacerlo bien, no estar preocupado. Y bueno, ahí fue su debut y tuvo la oportunidad de hacer varias presentaciones después. Cada vez que está ahí es un gran evento, ¿no? Para alguien que es inglés, trabaja justo enfrente y tiene la oportunidad de ver esta sala, que es tan grande y tan importante que se hacen incluso partidos de tenis y de box durante el año, ¿no? Es un lugar muy, pues eso, muy grande y muy importante en Londres. Wonderful. So let's talk about your recordings. There's a lot to say. The first thing I would like to ask is, how are you when you record? Of course, you play, and then are you crazy about the editing, about listening, about how involved are you with all of the process?
Oh yeah, I'm very involved, but I've made my first recording back in '97, so many years ago, and my attitude towards recording has changed a lot. For the very first recording, I tried to imagine myself in a concert hall, that I was giving a concert. That was the only way in my mind at the time that I felt I could give an honest recording, if I felt I would, or I really wanted to make it sound as live as possible. And of course, in recording, it's not. There are lots and lots of edits involved, but I probably tired myself out a little bit too much and put a lot of pressure on myself at the beginning, because I did an awful lot of playing in long takes. It's part of the learning process of you have to find your own, or your individual way of recording. It's very different for everybody. So over the course of time, now I'm very much involved in, I tend to record in short stretches, but I do like to play the whole piece in one go, first of all, especially to give the producer, who may not be, depending on the repertoire, he may not be completely familiar with the music. So you have to work together with the producer and the engineer. It's a very important relationship, so that they can get a feel, first of all, of the structure of the piece, of how my general interpretation will be, so that we can work from that very first edit. So I always do that first of all, and then listen back right away, and then work out, and then probably think, oh my God, there's so many things I need to get right, or it's not quite the right sound, or not quite the right feeling. So then, again, I've become more patient about the process. You can become very impatient, because you really want to do your best, and sometimes things don't go well in a take. You're just not. I'm not particularly good at performing in the morning, and recording sessions begin in the morning, and it takes me a while to warm up. So you have to take that sort of thing into consideration as well. So it's it's a very different. I'm much more relaxed about recording now. In fact, I always used to record by memory. Now I will always have the music to hand. Sometimes I may play by memory, but I put less pressure on myself when I'm recording. I think that's what I've learned over the years.
Le pregunté sobre, bueno, ha hecho una infinidad de discos y le pregunté sobre la manera de involucrarse y de grabar. Es un proceso difícil y al principio trató de hacer tomas muy largas como si estuviera en un concierto y le parecía que era la manera de hacer un disco, una grabación genuina y correcta, tratando de hacer igual que en un concierto. Y a lo largo de los años ha ido cambiando su visión hasta que ahora pues se permite tomarlo de una manera más relajada y por ejemplo, ya utiliza de pronto la partitura, antes hacía todo de memoria, siempre graba una toma larga para que el productor, el ingeniero de audio conozcan la pieza y puedan darse cuenta de las ideas musicales y que si la pieza no es muy conocida, se familiaricen un poco, de tal manera que puedan trabajar después, pero ya no trata de que todo sea en una sola toma, después hacen las tomas que se necesitan y pues sí, a veces resulta difícil, por ejemplo, si empieza la grabación en la mañana y no es una persona que le sea fácil empezar y necesite tiempo para calentar. Entonces, pues lo toma con paciencia, con más paciencia que antes y pues sí ha habido una evolución y sobre todo que ahora ya lo toma de manera más sencilla. Oh, so from the recordings, of course, there are the very famous composers, but I was interested by the Samuel Barber. Yeah,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
you just talked about...
The very first recording I made was Samuel Barber, yeah.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
you did another, right?
And then I made another one,
Yeah.
yes. Unfortunately, it became unavailable, so I decided to do another one. And then the record company decided to re-release it. So,
Okay, so
I now have
they're
the two recordings
and
are,
many pieces are
both
the same,
available.
right?
Yeah, they are, yes. Now, the second one with some recordings is the complete. It includes some of the earlier works of Barber that weren't in print when I recorded the very first one back in 97. It came out in 97 on Virgin Classics. Yes, it was a way into recording. I had to find something unusual because there were so many recordings of all the classical repertoire. As a debuting to make my recording debut, there was a lot of discussion. Leon has to do something that's hardly been done before, or something that is just slightly off the radar, known but not so well known. And the Barber seemed a perfect fit because I had performed quite a lot of the music at the Curtis Institute. I had really, I felt it was very wide-ranging repertoire for piano as well. Covers most of Barber's life, from the early pieces to later, his final piece composed in 1977, the Ballade, which was commissioned by the Van Cliburn competition. But the main work is the Piano Sonata, which I think is one of the most strong 20th century piano sonatas. A very effective piece, and influenced by 12-tone. Barber has an unusual style. It's neo-romantic, but then there are all sorts of little glints of 12-tone, serialism as well, and interesting, but also very lyrical. He wrote beautiful songs, Barber. I just wish he would have composed more melodic repertoire for the piano. There's a great piano concerto which has beautiful slow movement, but I just wish he'd composed more. He only composed when he had a commission, so his output's relatively small. But what there is of piano is all very strong music, and some of it's influenced by jazz and American folk music. There's pieces called the Excursions.
There's something called like blues.
Yes, that's right. There are 4 pieces, Excursions, and one of them is a blues. One of them's a boogie woogie. One of them's inspired by country western and hoedown. So really fun to play. Those go down very well with audiences. So it felt a really good, at the time, a good thing to do, and it was well reviewed. I had some good reviews.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Le pregunté sobre sus grabaciones. Ha hecho obviamente de los grandísimos compositores, Mozart, Haydn, Schumann, Brahms, etcétera. Pero dentro de todo su catálogo me llamaron la atención algunas de las cuales le estoy preguntando. Primero por Samuel Barber, un compositor estadounidense, y recordó que fue su primer disco, su primera grabación. Estaban buscando qué hacer y pues obviamente era interesante que no fuera algo que ya estuviera extremadamente tocado, ¿no? Por un joven pianista había que innovar. Entonces él había estudiado esta música con su maestra en el Curtis Institute, entonces parecía que era una elección perfecta. Entonces inició con eso. Este disco, después de un tiempo, salió del mercado y decidió volverlo a grabar, y en esta segunda grabación incluyó nuevas piezas que no estaban todavía impresas en el primero, y después la primera disquera decidió volver a sacar el disco, entonces ahora se pueden conseguir los dos. Y bueno, nos habló un poco sobre la música de Barber, quien escribió genialmente para el instrumento. Su sonata tal vez es una de las sonatas más importantes del siglo XX, y sin embargo no escribió tanto para el piano, y cada vez que escribía para el instrumento era porque tenía una comisión que lo llevaba a escribir para el piano, si no, no lo hacía. También nos comenta de algunas de sus obras que tienen influencia del jazz y que tienen mucho éxito con las audiencias. Y sin embargo, su forma de escribir a veces es extraña, es dodecafónica un poco, pero no del todo. Es también un poco del romanticismo tardío. Es una forma de escribir en la que a él le hubiera gustado que a lo mejor escribiera cosas más melódicas. Tiene algunos segundos movimientos geniales, pero bueno, lo que escribió es algo muy, muy, muy relevante en la literatura pianística. Wonderful. There's another CD, Ronald Corp.
Oh yes,
And you worked with the composer.
I did, yes,
right?
yes. It wasn't a commission. It was premiered before, but it was the very first recording of his music, and he was very much inspired by Shostakovich. There's a great Russian feel to his music, quite percussive, but also very much steeped in the English tradition. And he's a choral conductor as well as a composer. Such a lovely man to work with. So that was a fun project, and he conducted as well. We recorded in Cadogan Hall, in a beautiful hall in London.
How is it working with a composer and as a conductor?
Perfect. We had absolutely no problem at all. And we worked together at the Proms, in fact, back in 1999. So we knew one another. That's how we got to know one another. I played the Franck Variation Symphonique with him, with the London Concert Orchestra.
Wonderful. Le pregunté sobre otro disco que hizo con Ronald Corp, su concierto para piano, que lo dirigió el mismo Ronald Corp, quien también era un director de coros y con quien ya había trabajado. Lo conoció en los Proms, justamente, tocando... What did you play at the Proms with him?
César Franck.
Las variaciones sinfónicas de César Franck. Y bueno, ahí surgió la amistad, la relación, y así es como decidieron hacer la primera grabación de este concierto para piano de Ronald Corp. Beautiful music. Well, let's get to the repertoire for your concert tomorrow. So you're free to play whenever you want to show whatever.
Well, I just arrived last night, so I have to apologize. I'm a little bit on the tired side, so I may play a little bit later. We'll see.
Yeah, you just let me know. Vamos a hablar del repertorio. Lo invito a tocar si quiere cualquier fragmento. Obviamente que llegó ayer en la noche, un viaje muy, muy largo, entonces dice que vamos viendo. Muy bien. So this is a big trip.
It is. It's a journey for the audience, isn't it?
It's a journey, yeah. Yes. So with starting... Let me go.
First of all, with Haydn. Yes, so Haydn is a composer I've really got to know over the last few years. I mean, I have performed his sonatas when I was younger, but I've made 4 volumes now of his sonatas. I love his music. He's such an optimistic composer. It's so bright and there's a freshness to it. And I love that his sort of, has very clear rhythm and articulation. But most importantly for me, and what really makes me enjoy the music more, is his humor. It's so witty. And the very wide-ranging repertoire I performed the sonatas many times in concerts, and also there's a beautiful set of variations called the F minor variations, which was Haydn composed later on in his life, that are totally different to the F major sonata that you'll hear tomorrow, which has all the typical elements of Haydn's style, all those, great articulation and wit, lots of jokiness in the music. And some of the humor is because he uses silence in the music to create this humor. There's a lot of unexpected drama about it too. There's nothing straightforward. And sometimes it can be a bit rough. It's refined in places, but it has that element of folk music in it. It dances, especially the third movement that I'll be playing. So I open with the Haydn tomorrow.
Bueno, le pregunto sobre el repertorio. Es un viaje enorme para el público, ¿no? Vamos a ir hablando de todo, pero son muchos momentos muy intensos, muy distintos. Va a empezar con una sonata de Haydn, quien pues es un compositor al que le ha dedicado 4 discos de sonatas. Él acaba de sacar el 4 y es un compositor que le llama la atención y le gusta en particular por el sentido del humor, lo divertido que es, lo inesperado que puede ser, la utilización de pronto de los silencios en momentos que causa drama. Después hay unas partes muy refinadas, unas partes que son basadas más en el folclore. Entonces tiene sobre todo esta...
Playful elements as well.
Sí, los elementos juguetones, ¿no? Entonces es una música muy, muy viva.
I can play the opening.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, it's music that makes you smile. It's a sort of music you want to play in the morning. It's morning music. It sort of wakes you up.
Sí, es una música que te hace sonreír, es música que quieres tocar en las mañanas porque te despierta y te hace sonreír. Beautiful. Okay, so then we go to more dramatic and melancholic experience with Chopin's nocturnes.
Yeah, such a poetic composer, and I thought these would be a contrast between the Haydn and the Beethoven works that I'm playing in the first half. These are later nocturnes. The first, Opus 55, it's in the style of a march. It's quite melancholy and somber. But like of all Chopin nocturnes inspired by opera, for example, the operas of Bellini, he has these beautiful long lines, but very, very sometimes complex harmonies. That's what makes him an absolute genius. But with that always that classical element. He's a classical composer. We have to be aware not to sometimes indulge too much in his music. Just let the music play for itself. I try and communicate the music in the most natural way possible, as if I were a singer. And the second nocturne is, this is even more complex. I think it's the most exquisite of the set. It's not as well known as the other E flat from the earlier in opus, but it's one of my favorites. It's a beautiful melody. A very lyrical composer and beautiful. The right hand is in two parts, so it's almost like two voices in conversation with one another. Very subtle music.
La siguiente parte del concierto son los nocturnos de Chopin, 2 nocturnos, que pensó que era una muy bella manera de juntar el Haydn con el Beethoven, que son las 2 piezas que se van a interpretar en la primera parte, en los nocturnos a la mitad, con estos 2 nocturnos opus 55, el primero andante en fa menor, muy lírico, esa magia que tiene Chopin de cantar, ¿no? El bel canto en el piano, pero con unas armonías sutiles y exquisitas, lo cual lo hacen un verdadero genio en la escritura, que finalmente es una escritura clásica en la que no se debe uno de regodear en el rubato y en todo eso, sino dejar que la misma música vaya llevando de una manera, pues, como un compositor clásico. Y después el segundo nocturno, que es menos conocido, opus 55 en mi bemol mayor, el lento sostenuto, que es del que interpretó un fragmento, es menos conocido, pero es muy bello. Está hecho también como en una especie de 2 voces, una especie de polifonía. Y bueno, pues that's the second part with the nocturnes. Yes. And then, of course...
and then the big Les Adieux Sonata, the Farewell Sonata, Opus 81A, a piece that I've known for many years, in fact played it in the Beethoven competition, and felt 30 years on, I hadn't played it for quite a long time, for many years, that this year it would be wonderful to bring it back and play it again. Returning, because it's all the music return. The third movement has this triumphant return. It's the most programmatic of Beethoven sonatas. This title, Les Adieux, relates to the departure of Beethoven's friend and patron, the Archduke Rudolf, from Vienna during the Napoleonic
He actually wrote
invasion.
The words.
And he actually wrote, yes, Lebewohl, farewell, on the first descending 3 notes of the music. And this acts as a motif through the first movement. And is very poignant, depicting this departure, but also the busyness you can imagine, the carriages in preparation, getting ready, and then right at the end, the doors shut, the gates close abruptly, and then everyone disappears. The second movement is a depiction of the absence, and this is incredibly concise. It's just over 2 pages, but it says so much in this short time. Beethoven is incredibly concise and and is able to create a very strong emotional feel so quickly. It's so we relate to that immediately, very direct. And then it acts as a lead back to the return of Archduke Rudolph. Beethoven waited until the Archduke had returned before he composed it, before he published it. He wanted to make sure that he got back safely. This is very exhilarating music. It's marked vivacissimamente. It's a bit of a mouthful too. As lively as possible, we translate it as them. So I like to play it quite quickly. It's a real prestissimo, and lots of fun to play. Probably one of the most joyful finales in the set of Beethoven 32 sonatas.
Bueno, va a seguir con la sonata Les Adieux, la despedida de Beethoven, que está en 3 partes, es de la música más programática que escribió Beethoven, inclusive con la palabra despedida en las primeras 3 notas, un motivo inicial, y es una obra que Beethoven logra expresar la partida de su amigo el archiduque Rodolfo, que el archiduque Rodolfo, que era su amigo, que se tuvo que ir con la invasión de Napoleón. Entonces la primera parte se llama así, la despedida, y va contando de manera musical toda la preparación, cómo van preparando el carruaje, etcétera, etcétera, hasta que finalmente se cierran las puertas. Esto sería el primer movimiento. Let me explain. Después viene el segundo movimiento, que es muy conciso, y Beethoven logra de manera impresionante, con pues son 2 páginas nada más, digamos con poco material, darnos esta importancia de la ausencia, así se llama la segunda parte, la ausencia, y pues esa capacidad de síntesis que tiene Beethoven para lograr que la emoción pase en tan poco tiempo. Y después el tercer movimiento, que es el regreso. Entonces se esperó Beethoven a ver que el archiduque regresara sano y salvo, y es muy feliz, es uno de los momentos más vivacísimo, está escrito en la partitura, y es uno de los momentos más alegres y más joviales que tiene Beethoven, y en ese sentido le gusta al maestro tocarlo bastante rápido. Wonderful.
It's an exercise for the fingers.
I can imagine.
I need to do some practice today.
Es un ejercicio para los dedos. Necesita practicar. Bueno, I listen to it perfectly. And then, of course, on the second half, Brahms' Rhapsody is this beautiful, intense music. Tell us a little bit about those Brahms Rhapsodies.
Absolutely. Totally. They're the words I would say. It's very, very intense. Brahms is incredibly influenced by Beethoven, classicism. There's great structure in his playing, in his compositions. And these 2 rhapsodies, even though they're called rhapsodies, they're in a tight structure, but then they also have this great freedom and beautiful contrast. The
singing parts.
Yes, the middle section of the first rhapsody is almost like a Chopin nocturne, with beautiful transparency in the writing. So it's not just thickly scored. They do have a very orchestral, symphonic feel to them. They're really huge, particularly the number 2, the second one. So I will open the second half with those, and then continue on to Schumann, to Brahms's Mentor.
Bueno, entonces va a empezar la segunda parte con las dos rapsodias de Brahms, música muy intensa, en donde hay una escritura ciertamente orquestal, pero también de pronto un lirismo, unos cantables muy bellos que nos pueden recordar a la escritura de Chopin, pero de nuevo regresan estas intensidades orquestales y en particular con la segunda rapsodia que tiene esta escritura bastante poderosa. Y bueno, vamos a terminar el concierto con Schumann. Tell us a little bit about that Schumann piece.
Yes. So remaining with the Viennese theme, most of this recital is inspired by the city of Vienna. And this particular piece was written when Schumann visited Vienna. This is called Faschingsschwank aus Wien, Carnival Jest from Vienna. Incredibly imaginative piece for the young composer. He composed this in late 20s. I love Schumann because it's very spontaneous. You never know where you're going. You turn over the page and you can be in a different world. It's almost like you're reading his diary. It's very intimate and very personal music, inspired by the love of his life, Clara, of course, and then many other. He often pays tribute to composers of the past. So there are elements in this piece. There's a little quote from Beethoven. We hear a little bit of Chopin, some Mendelssohn, and there are hidden themes. Some of them we don't even know about. We'll know. So it's very enigmatic and sometimes quite puzzling for the listener. If you don't know his music, you can be a little bit surprised by it. There are lots of unexpected twists and turns in the music. This is in 5 movements. And the reason it's called Jest, Carnival Joke, is Schumann includes a little quote from the French national anthem, La Marseillaise, but he dots it like that. It's quite a naughty quote because it was forbidden at that time. The Marseillaise was forbidden in Vienna because of the Napoleonic connection. So I wanted to compare those works, the Les Adieux Beethoven, and then we have another work inspired by Vienna in a different way. So it's a very fantastical first movement. Lots of different episodes. Also very inspired by dance music, like Schubert, Viennese music, and you can also imagine the carnival atmosphere, like the Mardi Gras. It's Shrove Tuesday, we call it in England, the day before Ash Wednesday. So the audience, the listeners can try and conjure up in their minds the sort of theatrical element of different performers coming on and off the stage. I like to try and think of it that way. It has lots of character, his music, and then there are you can hear elements of Brahms, the future music of Brahms in the second movement, and then the fourth movement, which is called Intermezzo, a title that Brahms used an awful lot in his later repertoire. And then, like the Les Adieux, I end this half in a very triumphant way. This is the fifth movement is very bubbly. It bubbles. It's effervescent, like champagne, really.
Yeah, nice to end the concert.
Yes,
with some champagne.
Yes, exactly. So a celebration at the end of the concert.
Bueno, en la última parte del concierto va a interpretar esta obra que conocemos como el Carnaval de Viena, donde trató de unir esta temática que tiene todo el concierto alrededor de esta ciudad de Viena. El compositor Schumann le gusta mucho en particular por esta intimidad que revela en sus obras, en donde podemos ver como si nos estuviera contando su diario. Vemos, por ejemplo, compositores que le eran afines, de repente citas de diferentes compositores. También podemos ver el amor hacia su esposa, Clara Schumann, gran pianista y compositora también, que pues marcó fuertemente la vida de Robert Schumann y también de Brahms. Y podemos también ver un poco este sentido del humor que tenía Brahms. La obra se llama así, como una broma en el carnaval de Venecia, y toma un fragmento breve de la Marsellesa, que en ese momento estaba prohibido en Viena porque Napoleón había invadido, y entonces toma así de manera, pues, algo rebelde, haciendo una broma pesada, un fragmento de la Marsellesa. Y se puede escuchar eso en el primer movimiento. También se puede escuchar un poco de música folclórica un poco. Y bueno, tiene otros movimientos esta obra. El cuarto es el intermezzo. El intermezzo que pues tiene, pues uno puede ya empezar a imaginar al Brahms después, ¿no? Que escribió varios intermezzi, y el último movimiento es una pieza muy efervescente, como si fuera champaña, terminar el concierto con esta fuerza. And the second movement, you said something about it.
The second movement is called a romance.
Yes. Es una romanza.
Yeah, pues, obviously inspired by his love for Clara.
Inspirado en su amor para su esposa Clara. A beautiful program.
Yeah, so hope the audience will enjoy it.
We will.
Yeah, hope so.
Sí, espera que lo disfrutemos y así será.
And there may be a little bit more after the Schumann, if they like.
Of course they will. Tal vez habrá algo más después del Schumann. Y, well, we always have some comments from...
All right, okay.
So, you have
nothing embarrassing, I hope.
So, Andrea Vallejo from Puerto Vallarta, I don't know if you know it, it's a beautiful beach town here in Mexico. When are you coming to Puerto Vallarta?
Oh, well, such a shame. I'm here visiting 3 cities, but I won't have any time to even visit Mexico City.
I know.
Because I'm here for work, but hopefully another time.
Next time.
Hopefully next time I can stay a bit longer.
Yeah.
But I've never been to the coastline of Mexico.
It's beautiful. You should.
Hopefully I'll discover that.
What advice would you give to the young pianists that are starting?
Well, I don't know about the musical education in Mexico, whether you have a sort of exam system when students are learning music. Do they go through an exam system like this?
Well,
like something similar?
It's a big country with many big differences.
Right.
So small towns don't really have a big musical education.
Yes.
Mexico City, Monterrey, Guadalajara may have a little bit more.
Yes.
So it really depends. People that are very focused will get into that. But
so I would say to the young ones, just follow your passion and enjoy what you're doing. Don't get too bogged down in all the detail at first. Just focus on the music. Listen to lots of recordings. Go to concerts. Really, all sorts of concerts. I mean, it doesn't even have to be all classical music. I don't really like that term classical music anyway. Let's just call it music. It's so varied, especially the piano repertoire. So that's what I would say. Go and to listen to as much music as you can.
La pregunta era qué consejo le daría a los jóvenes pianistas. Me preguntaba un poco cómo es el sistema aquí, si hay mucha competencia, muchos concursos. Le digo que es tan variado el país, hay tantas diferencias entre las ciudades y los pequeños, los lugares más pequeños, obviamente que no hay las mismas oportunidades, ni mucho menos. Entonces dice, bueno, en general creo que deben de seguir su pasión, no fijarse tanto en los detalles, sino tratar de seguir su camino, escuchar mucha música, ir a muchos conciertos y que escuchen mucha música clásica, la cual ni siquiera se debería de llamar así, hay que llamarla simplemente música. Yeah. Which personality do you feel has influenced you the most?
Do you mean as a teacher or any personality?
It's open.
It's open. Yeah, I don't have one particular person, but I'd have to say the 3 teachers in my life, because without those teachers, I wouldn't be here today talking to you. I really feel that the power of teaching is so important in the education of music. Sometimes they're forgotten about. They're not necessarily always given that prestige. It's always the performer, but behind the performer,
especially in music.
Yeah, usually is a great teacher. And I had 3 great teachers So Heather, as I said, Heather Slade-Lipkin, Eleanor Sokolov, and also a mentor I worked with for many years in London, Nina Milkina, a Russian pianist who lived in London for many years. Beautiful Mozart player. I learned so much from her. So I think, yeah, it's three personalities there for you.
Ok.
Yeah.
La pregunta, ¿cuál es la personalidad que más ha marcado su vida? Y contesta que pues son sus tres maestras, que realmente a veces se les da poco lugar, poco honor a los maestros, se le da todo el prestigio al intérprete, pero detrás de un intérprete están los maestros y piensa que sin esas tres maestras no sería lo que es. Nos había hablado de dos, de Eleanor Sokolov, y nos había hablado también de Heather
Slade-Lipkin.
Y al final nos habló de una maestra rusa,
Nina Milkina,
quien era una increíble intérprete de música de Mozart. Okay, congratulations. Great conversation.
Oh, thank you very much, Akila. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's not over yet.
Oh, it's not over yet?
2 more questions. I know. It's almost over. Your teaching, you just talked about the importance of teaching. So,
yes.
Tell us about
Yes, for me now, yeah. I've been teaching at the Royal College for 15 years, and it's a very important part of my life. And I have at the moment about 5 or 6 students a year. I teach 1 day a week. And I think that goes really well, having that varied career of a performer and teacher. It's very satisfying for me as a musician because it also helps, it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me questioning why I'm here also. What I can do to improve, how I can, I'm always learning as a musician, and teaching helps you to do that. And it can be very inspiring others, passing on the legacy that I've been given from my teachers as well. I think that's also a very important element for me. I don't just want to, die and then the legacy has disappeared from all the, everything I've learned from my experience. So that's an important element too. Yeah, it can be challenging sometimes because everyone has a different personality. And you, as a teacher, you have to try and react differently to each person. But very gratifying, very rewarding.
Le pregunté sobre su labor como docente, como maestro, y contesta que pues sí es una parte muy, muy relevante de lo que hace. Tiene un día dedicado a la semana para enseñar y es una labor que le permite mantenerse bien con los pies en la tierra, preguntarse sobre su propio quehacer y mantenerse aprendiendo y reflexionando al respecto. Y también la importancia que tiene pasar este legado tan grande y tan importante que recibió de sus maestras en toda su formación a las siguientes generaciones, ¿no? Y que no cuando se muera pues ya se quedó ahí, sino tratar de que esto siga. Y pues tiene sus retos, ¿no? Como los diferentes tipos de personalidad a los que se enfrenta y pues uno tiene que ser reactivo y adaptarse a las diferentes personalidades a quienes uno les tiene que enseñar. And last question. So, your new CD, you're preparing a new recording, and I feel it's very different than the others because all of the others, it's one composer. That's like the theme. For the first time, it's like a thematic album, and that's wonderful. Tell us about it.
Yes, very excited about this. This idea came about during the lockdown when none of us could go outside. We were all stuck indoors. And I've always been a lover of nature. I love walking and being out in the fresh air and love animals. And so this idea came about. There's so many composers that are inspired by nature and the natural world that it'd be a good idea to do something totally different in my repertoire and perform works and record works that I've done and played for many years but have never put onto disc. As a compilation with this theme running through it. And also it's called Natural Connection. So there's all the music has a connection, a deep connection to nature and the natural world. So there's music as varied as Bartók, the night's music, which is inspired by insects and the atmosphere of night. And then I'm going to segue that into Debussy's famous Clair de Lune. So I think those two works link in. I'm trying to find interesting links, unusual links to the music. But there's music of Rachmaninoff, transcriptions of his songs, Lilacs and Daisies, Tchaikovsky, lots of Liszt, a composer I love, but I've never recorded before. And French music I love too, but I've never recorded those works. So as well as Clair de Lune, I'm doing Debussy L'Île Joyeuse, Jardin sous la pluie, Gardens under the rain, Jeu d'eau, and also pairing the Ravel Jeu d'eau with the Liszt Jeu d'eau à la Villa d'Este. Yeah. So, and there's some unusual, the Godowsky arrangement of the Swan. Yeah, Saint-Saëns, the Swan. So there's, some of them are like encores. There's a very popular element to this. That will be coming out, be released early next year on the Somme label, a record label I've been recording quite a lot over the years. Looking forward to that release. So just before I came from Mexico, I've been listening to the final edits. And so that's, we've done the master now, so cross fingers.
Wonderful. Le pregunté ya para terminar sobre su nuevo álbum que sale en enero, en inicios del próximo año, que se llama Natural Connections. Conexiones naturales, y por primera vez todos sus otros discos han sido sobre un compositor, música de un compositor. En este caso es una compilación de diferentes compositores que tienen que ver en algún aspecto con la naturaleza. Esto fue una idea que surge durante la pandemia, en este tiempo donde pues tenemos tiempo de caminar en la naturaleza, etcétera, reflexionar. Surge esta idea de tomar elementos de diferentes piezas que tengan que ver con la naturaleza, que ha sido un tema muy utilizado por los compositores, y juntar a compositores como Debussy en su Claro de Luna, una obra que se llama Música de Noche de Bartók, donde está inspirada en los insectos, poner estas dos piezas juntas, el tema del agua con Jeu d'eau, Juegos de Agua de Ravel, y Jeu d'eau à la Villa d'Este de Liszt. También estas dos piezas se juntan. También del mismo Debussy, L'Île Joyeuse, La Isla Alegre, una obra de...
There are lots of other things.
I know.
There are 21 tracks.
Oh, 20.
So there are lots of there's Grieg, music of Grieg
as
well. And,
y una transcripción del
Rachmaninoff.
Del cisne. The Swan Transcription.
The Swan, yes.
Bueno, un disco que tiene muchas diferentes piezas, y justo nos comenta que antes de venir a México estuvo haciendo las últimas ediciones. Ya está el máster, y que pues espera que todo haya salido bien. Congratulations for that, and we're looking forward to listen to
Muchas
that.
Gracias.
And we're looking forward for your concert.
Thank you very
last
much.
word for a Mexican audience and people watching all over.
Oh, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you today and to the audience here, and I hope very much that you'll enjoy my recital tomorrow. Thrilled to be here, and I'll break a leg, hopefully.
Break a leg. Bueno, unas últimas palabras, agradecer a la audiencia aquí, agradecer la conversación, y pues esperando que disfruten también el recital y break a leg. Thank you.
Arriba. Do you say arriba?
Not really in this context, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gobierno de México.